If you're eating sardines thinking you're doing something healthy for your body, you might be shocked to learn that one simple mistake could be turning this superfood into something that's actually working against you. I've seen patients in my clinic who thought they were making the best choice for their heart health, only to discover they were unknowingly causing more harm than good. My name is Dr. Helen Brooks, and I'm a cardiologist and nutritionist with over 20 years of clinical experience. Throughout my career, I've worked with thousands of patients trying to improve their cardiovascular health, and I can tell you that sardines are one of the most misunderstood foods in medicine today. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting that button and turning on the notification bell so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. If you enjoy this video, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Now, let me tell you about Mr. Robert Thompson, a 72-year-old retired teacher who came into my office 6 months ago. Robert was doing everything right, or so he thought. He'd read about omega-3 fatty acids, he knew sardines were a powerhouse of nutrition, and he was eating them almost every single day. But when we ran his blood work, something wasn't adding up. His inflammation markers were elevated, his blood pressure was higher than it should be, and he was experiencing frequent headaches. What Robert didn't know was that the way he was consuming sardines was completely sabotaging his health goals. The first major mistake, and this is something I see constantly in my practice, is eating sardines straight from the can without draining the liquid. I know this sounds simple, almost too simple to matter, but let me explain why this is absolutely critical. When sardines are canned, they're typically packed in one of several liquids: water, olive oil, soybean oil, or sometimes even sunflower oil. Now, here's what most people don't realize. That liquid isn't just sitting there innocently. It's absorbing salt, it's collecting sodium from the preservation process, and depending on what oil is used, it could be loaded with omega-6 fatty acids that actually promote inflammation in your body. Think about it this way. You're eating sardines for the anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids, right? But if you're consuming all that packing liquid, especially if it's a refined vegetable oil, you're simultaneously flooding your body with omega-6 fatty acids that counteract the very benefits you're seeking. It's like taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. The ideal ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in our diet should be around 4:1, but most people consuming sardines with the packing oil are getting ratios as high as 20:1 or even worse. Let me tell you about Miss Patricia Collins, 68 years old, a former accountant. Patricia had read all about the Mediterranean diet and how sardines were a staple. She bought the finest sardines packed in what the label claimed was pure olive oil. For 8 months, she ate them religiously, 3 times a week, oil and all. She thought she was following the Mediterranean way perfectly. But when she came to see me complaining of joint pain and persistent fatigue, we discovered her inflammatory markers were through the roof. Her C-reactive protein, a key inflammation indicator, was in the high-risk range. When I asked her to walk me through exactly how she ate her sardines, that's when we found the problem. She would open the can, take a fork, and eat everything, oil included, because she thought that olive oil was part of the health benefit. Here's what I explained to Patricia, and what I want you to understand. Even if the label says olive oil, that oil has been sitting with those fish, absorbing sodium and other preservation compounds. Commercial canning oil is often not the same quality as the extra virgin olive oil you'd drizzle on a salad. And more importantly, that oil is so calorie-dense that just those few tablespoons in the can could add an extra 200 to 300 calories to your meal without you even realizing it. For someone watching their weight or managing diabetes, this is a disaster. Patricia was unknowingly consuming an extra 900 calories a week just from the canning liquid. If you're still watching and finding this information useful, comment 1 below to show me you're with me. I want to make sure I'm helping you avoid these critical mistakes. The second mistake that's incredibly common is not paying attention to the sodium content. Sardines are naturally preserved with salt, and most canned varieties contain anywhere from 200 to 500 milligrams of sodium per serving. Now, that might not sound like much, but here's the reality. Most people eat more than 1 serving at a time, and they're not accounting for the fact that everything else they're eating that day also contains sodium. Before you know it, you've blown past the recommended daily limit of 2,300 milligrams. I remember Mr. James Wilson, 75 years old, a retired construction worker who came to my office with his wife. She was worried because his ankles were constantly swollen, and he was experiencing shortness of breath when climbing stairs. James had been eating sardines every morning on toast, thinking he was doing his heart a favor. But when we looked at his diet diary, we calculated he was consuming over 4,000 milligrams of sodium daily, with the sardines contributing a huge portion. His blood pressure was 160/95, and his kidneys were showing early signs of stress. The excess sodium was causing his body to retain fluid, putting enormous strain on his cardiovascular system. What makes this particularly dangerous for older adults is that our kidneys become less efficient at filtering excess sodium as we age. What might have been manageable in your 40s becomes a serious problem in your 60s and 70s. The retained fluid doesn't just cause swelling. It increases blood volume, which forces your heart to work harder with every single beat. Over time, this can lead to left ventricular hypertrophy, where your heart muscle actually thickens and becomes less effective at pumping blood. It's a vicious cycle that can accelerate heart failure. But if that surprised you, wait until you hear about the third mistake, and this one is particularly concerning because it involves something most people think they're doing right. Many people buy sardines with bones, knowing that these tiny bones are an excellent source of calcium. And they're absolutely correct about that. Those soft, edible bones can provide up to 35% of your daily calcium needs in just one serving. But here's the mistake. They're not considering how calcium interacts with other minerals and medications in their body. Let me introduce you to Miss Eleanor Martinez, 81 years old, a retired librarian who loved to garden. Eleanor had osteoporosis, and her doctor had prescribed calcium supplements along with vitamin D. She was also eating sardines 4 times a week specifically for the bone-in calcium content. She thought she was being proactive, giving her bones every advantage. But when she came to see me for a routine cardiovascular checkup, we found something alarming. Her calcium levels were too high, and she had developed small kidney stones. Her primary care physician hadn't connected the dots, but when we added up all her calcium sources, sardines included, she was getting almost 3,000 milligrams of calcium daily, nearly double the recommended amount for her age. Excess calcium doesn't just get filtered out harmlessly. It can deposit in your arteries, contributing to arterial calcification and increasing your risk of heart attack and stroke. It can form stones in your kidneys and gallbladder. It can interfere with the absorption of other essential minerals like iron, zinc, and magnesium. For Eleanor, we had to completely restructure her supplement routine and reduce her sardine consumption to once a week. Within 3 months, her calcium levels normalized and her kidney function improved dramatically. This brings me to the fourth critical mistake, and this is one that almost nobody talks about. People are eating sardines at the wrong time of day and in the wrong combinations. Nutrition isn't just about what you eat. It's about when you eat it and what you eat it with. Sardines are incredibly rich in protein and healthy fats, which means they're quite heavy for your digestive system to process. If you're eating them late at night before bed, you're asking your body to do some serious digestive work while you're trying to sleep. I had a patient, Mr. Frank Harrison, 69 years old, a former engineer. Frank would eat sardines as a late-night snack, usually around 9 or 10 at night, thinking he was making a healthier choice than chips or ice cream. And compared to those options, yes, sardines are better. But Frank started experiencing terrible acid reflux, disrupted sleep, and he'd wake up feeling bloated and uncomfortable. The high-fat content of sardines, while healthy fat, slows down gastric emptying. When you lie down shortly after eating them, stomach acid can more easily flow back into your esophagus, causing that burning sensation and potentially damaging the delicate tissue there over time. Moreover, the timing of protein consumption matters for nutrient absorption. Your body's digestive enzymes are most active during daylight hours when you're active and moving. Eating protein-rich foods like sardines earlier in the day, particularly at lunch, allows for optimal digestion and nutrient extraction. Frank shifted his sardine consumption to lunchtime, and within 2 weeks, his reflux symptoms disappeared completely, and he was sleeping through the night for the first time in months. The fifth mistake is ignoring the mercury and heavy metal content, or more accurately, not understanding the full picture. Now, sardines are generally considered a low-mercury fish, and that's true compared to larger predatory fish like tuna or swordfish. Sardines are small, low on the food chain, and they don't accumulate mercury the same way bigger fish do. However, and this is important, no fish is completely free of environmental contaminants. Sardines can contain varying levels of mercury, cadmium, and other heavy metals depending on where they were caught and how polluted those waters are. Miss Dorothy Chen, 74 years old, a retired nurse, came to see me with symptoms of chronic fatigue, brain fog, and muscle weakness. Dorothy was extremely health conscious. She ate sardines almost daily, sometimes twice a day, because she'd read they were safe and nutritious. But what she hadn't considered was cumulative exposure. Even low levels of heavy metals, when consumed consistently over months and years, can build up in your tissues. We ran a heavy metal panel, and her mercury levels were elevated, not dangerously so, but enough to cause her symptoms. Her body was struggling to detoxify faster than she was consuming. The solution isn't to avoid sardines completely, it's about variety and moderation. Rotating your fish sources, mixing in other omega-3 rich options like wild-caught salmon, mackerel, or even plant-based sources like flax seeds and walnuts, gives your body a break and prevents any single contaminant from accumulating. For Dorothy, we reduced her sardine consumption to twice a week and added a targeted detox protocol with plenty of cilantro, chlorella, and increased water intake. Within 6 weeks, her energy returned, her mental clarity improved, and she felt like herself again. Now, the 6th mistake, and this one might surprise you, is not eating the skin. I know, some people find the skin unappealing, and they carefully remove it before eating the fish. But you're throwing away one of the most nutrient-dense parts. The skin of sardines is incredibly rich in omega-3 fatty acids, collagen, and fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D and vitamin A. When you remove the skin, you're reducing the nutritional value of your meal significantly. Mr. George Patterson, 77 years old, a retired postal worker, had been eating sardines for years, but always removed the skin because he didn't like the texture. George came to me concerned about his skin health. He had developed very dry, flaky skin, and his joints were becoming increasingly stiff. His vitamin D levels were suboptimal despite living in a sunny climate, and his omega-3 index was lower than expected for someone who ate fish regularly. When I learned he was discarding the sardine skin, we had our answer. That skin is where much of the fat-soluble vitamin D is concentrated, along with those precious omega-3s. I encouraged George to give the skin another try, perhaps mashing it into a spread or mixing it thoroughly so the texture was less noticeable. He started making sardine pâté, blending the whole fish with a little lemon juice and herbs. Within a month, his skin hydration improved noticeably, and after 3 months, his joint mobility was significantly better. Those fat-soluble nutrients were finally getting into his system where they could do their work. The 7th mistake is combining sardines with the wrong foods, particularly foods that inhibit nutrient absorption. Sardines are packed with iron, zinc, calcium, and other minerals. But certain foods can block your body's ability to absorb these nutrients. For example, if you're eating sardines with foods high in phytic acid, like certain whole grains or legumes, that phytic acid binds to minerals and prevents absorption. Similarly, if you're drinking tea or coffee with your sardine meal, the tannins in those beverages can significantly reduce iron absorption. Miss Barbara Foster, 70 years old, a retired teacher, was doing everything right, or so it seemed. She ate sardines 3 times a week, took her supplements, and followed a balanced diet. But she was persistently anemic, and her doctor couldn't figure out why. When she came to see me for a second opinion, we went through her eating habits in detail. Barbara had a routine. She'd eat sardines on whole grain crackers for lunch, and she always enjoyed a cup of black tea immediately afterward. She thought the whole grains were adding fiber and health benefits, and the tea was full of antioxidants. All of that is true, but the combination was preventing her from absorbing the iron and zinc from the sardines. We made a simple adjustment. Barbara switched to having her sardines with vegetables and a squeeze of lemon, which actually enhances iron absorption thanks to the vitamin C. She moved her tea to at least an hour after her meal. Within 2 months, her iron levels started climbing, and her energy levels improved dramatically. She couldn't believe such small changes made such a huge difference, but that's the power of understanding food combinations and nutrient interactions. The 8th mistake, and this is one that really concerns me as a cardiologist, is eating sardines that are packed in inflammatory oils and not reading the labels carefully. Not all sardines are created equal. Some brands use high-quality olive oil, while others use cheaper soybean oil, cottonseed oil, or other refined vegetable oils that are high in omega-6 fatty acids, and may even contain trans fats if they've been partially hydrogenated. These oils are highly inflammatory and completely negate the anti-inflammatory benefits of the omega-3 fatty acids in the sardines themselves. Mr. Carl Rodriguez, 66 years old, a retired mechanic, thought he was making a smart choice by buying the most affordable sardines at his local store. He was on a fixed income, and he wanted to eat healthy without breaking the bank, which I completely understand. But Carl started experiencing worsening joint pain, and his cardiovascular inflammation markers were concerning. When I asked him to bring in the exact brand of sardines he was eating, we looked at the label together. They were packed in soybean oil, and the ingredient list showed added preservatives and flavor enhancers. That cheap option was actually costing him his health. I explained to Carl that he didn't need to buy the most expensive brand, but he did need to look for sardines packed in water or in olive oil from a reputable source. Even better, he could drain whatever liquid they came in and add his own high-quality olive oil at home. The price difference was minimal, maybe an extra $1 or $2 per can, but the health impact was enormous. After switching to better quality sardines and properly draining them, Carl's inflammation levels dropped significantly within 3 months, and his joint pain became much more manageable. The ninth and final mistake I see all the time is people not considering their individual health conditions and medications when eating sardines. Sardines are incredibly nutritious, but they're not appropriate for everyone in unlimited quantities. If you're taking blood thinners like warfarin, the vitamin K content in sardines can interfere with your medication's effectiveness. If you have gout, the purines in sardines can trigger painful flare-ups. If you have kidney disease, the protein and phosphorus content needs to be carefully monitored. Miss Helen Anderson, 73 years old, a retired accountant, had been eating sardines regularly for their heart health benefits. But Helen also took warfarin because she had atrial fibrillation. Her INR levels, which measure how thin her blood is, started fluctuating unpredictably. Sometimes they were too high, putting her at risk for bleeding. Sometimes they were too low, increasing her stroke risk. Her cardiologist was adjusting her warfarin dose constantly, and nobody could figure out why her levels were so unstable. When she mentioned to me during a consultation that she'd recently increased her sardine intake, we found the culprit. The vitamin K in sardines was interfering with her warfarin, which works by blocking vitamin K. This doesn't mean Helen had to give up sardines completely. It meant she needed consistency. If she ate sardines, she needed to eat roughly the same amount at regular intervals, so her doctor could adjust her warfarin dose accordingly and maintain stable INR levels. The problem wasn't the sardines themselves, it was the unpredictable consumption pattern. Once we established a consistent routine, her INR stabilized, and she could safely enjoy sardines twice a week without any medication complications. So now that you understand these 9 critical mistakes, what should you actually do? How can you eat sardines in a way that maximizes their incredible health benefits while avoiding these common pitfalls? Let me give you my professional recommendations based on years of clinical experience and the latest nutritional science. First, always drain the liquid from canned sardines. I don't care if it says olive oil on the label. Drain it, rinse the sardines gently if they're particularly salty, and if you want that olive oil taste, add your own high-quality extra virgin olive oil afterward. This simple step can save you hundreds of unnecessary calories and eliminate excess sodium and inflammatory oils. You're in control of what goes into your body. Second, read labels meticulously. Look for sardines packed in water or olive oil and check the sodium content. Aim for options with less than 300 milligrams of sodium per serving if possible. Look for sardines caught in clean waters, ideally with some certification or testing for heavy metals. Yes, these might cost a bit more, but your health is worth the investment. You wouldn't put cheap, contaminated fuel in an expensive car. Why would you put low-quality food in your precious body? Third, eat sardines earlier in the day, preferably at lunch. This gives your body ample time to digest and absorb all those nutrients before bedtime. Pair them with vitamin C-rich vegetables like bell peppers, tomatoes, or a squeeze of lemon to enhance iron absorption. Avoid drinking tea or coffee within an hour of your sardine meal. These simple timing and pairing strategies can double or even triple the nutritional benefit you receive. Fourth, embrace the whole fish. Eat the skin, eat the bones if they're there. These parts contain some of the most valuable nutrients. If texture is an issue, mash everything together with some lemon juice, garlic, and herbs to make a delicious spread. Your taste buds will adjust, and your body will thank you for the extra calcium, vitamin D, and collagen. Fifth, practice moderation and variety. Even though sardines are a nutritional powerhouse, eating them every single day is probably not ideal unless you've checked with your doctor and confirmed it suits your individual health situation. 2 to 3 times per week is an excellent frequency for most people. On other days, rotate in different protein sources and different types of fish to prevent any potential heavy metal accumulation and to give your body a diverse array of nutrients. Sixth, if you're taking any medications, especially blood thinners, diuretics, or if you have kidney disease, gout, or any chronic condition, please talk to your doctor before making sardines a regular part of your diet. I cannot stress this enough. What works wonderfully for one person might be problematic for another. Personalized nutrition is the future of medicine, and you need to know your own body and your own health circumstances. Seventh, consider the form. Fresh sardines, when you can find them, are fantastic. Grilled fresh sardines are a delicacy in many coastal cultures for good reason. But canned sardines, when chosen wisely, are nearly as nutritious and far more convenient. Just avoid sardines that are smoked or heavily processed with lots of additives, sauces, and flavorings. Simple is better. Finally, think of sardines as part of a complete, balanced approach to your health. They're not a magic bullet. They won't cure disease on their own, and they certainly won't fix a diet that's otherwise full of processed foods, sugar, and unhealthy fats. But as part of a Mediterranean-style diet rich in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, olive oil, nuts, and lean proteins, sardines are an absolute superstar. They can significantly reduce inflammation, support heart health, strengthen bones, and provide your brain with the fats it desperately needs to function optimally. I want to circle back to Robert, the retired teacher I mentioned at the beginning. After we identified his mistakes, draining the oil, reducing his overall consumption slightly, and timing his meals better, his transformation was remarkable. Within 3 months, his blood pressure dropped from 145/90 to 125/80. His inflammation markers normalized. His headaches disappeared. He had more energy than he'd felt in years. And all of this from simply eating sardines correctly, not from eliminating them or adding expensive supplements. Just doing it right made all the difference. The same thing happened with Patricia, James, Eleanor, Frank, Dorothy, George, Barbara, Carl, and Helen. Every single one of them experienced significant health improvements once we corrected how they were consuming sardines. These aren't unusual cases. These are the everyday people I see in my practice who are trying their best to be healthy, but are missing crucial information. That's why I make these videos. That's why I'm here talking to you today. Because you deserve to know the truth about the foods you're eating. You deserve to understand not just what to eat, but how to eat it, when to eat it, and what to avoid. This is the kind of detailed, practical information that can genuinely transform your health. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you for sticking with me. I know this was detailed, but I believe you deserve complete information, not just catchy headlines. If this video helped you, please hit that like button, share it with someone you know who eats sardines, and let me know in the comments which of these mistakes you are making. I read every comment, and your feedback helps me understand what topics to cover next. And remember, everything I've shared today is educational information based on my clinical experience and current medical knowledge. It's not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Before making any significant changes to your diet, especially if you have existing health conditions or take medications, please consult with your own healthcare provider. Your doctor knows your complete medical history and can give you recommendations tailored specifically to you. But now you're armed with the knowledge you need to eat sardines intelligently. You know what to look for on labels. You know how to prepare them properly. You know when to eat them and what to pair them with. You know the potential pitfalls to avoid. This knowledge puts you ahead of 99% of people who simply open a can and eat without thinking. Sardines truly are one of nature's most perfect foods when consumed correctly. They're affordable, sustainable, incredibly nutritious, and they can play a meaningful role in preventing heart disease, supporting brain health, and maintaining strong bones as we age. But like anything in nutrition and medicine, the details matter enormously. The difference between sardines helping you and sardines hurting you often comes down to these seemingly small factors that we've discussed today. So go ahead, enjoy your sardines. But do it wisely. Do it with intention. And most importantly, Do it in a way that truly supports your health rather than undermining it. Your body is the only place you have to live. It deserves the very best care you can give it, including getting your sardine consumption right. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, turn on those notifications, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll dive into another important health topic that could make a real difference in your life. Until then, take care of yourself, and remember, small changes in how you eat can lead to enormous changes in how you feel. Stay healthy, stay informed, and I'll talk to you very soon.